Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Amy attacks with festive grizzly bears, and Nick declares no blocks. After this, Amy uses Arcum's Sleigh to give her creature Vigilance. Does this cause it to become untapped? Okay, so in order to answer this question, we're going to need to know exactly how Vigilance works. So let's take a look, and we'll notice that the way Vigilance functions is when you're declaring your attackers, then normally that process involves those creatures becoming tapped. However, if any of those creatures have Vigilance, that rule does not apply to them, and those creatures would remain untapped. So as a consequence of the way that Vigilance works, we can see that it only applies at one specific time, that being when you're declaring your attackers. If the creatures that you're attacking with have Vigilance at that specific time, then that's great. They will not become tapped and everything will proceed hunky-dory. On the other hand, any of the creatures that do not have Vigilance at that specific point in time will become tapped. And that means that if they, for example, gained Vigilance sometime later, the game doesn't actually care about that at all. It would not back up to untap those creatures, nor would it untap them in the middle of combat to try to rectify that situation. Those creatures would just remain tapped. So that's the answer to our original question. Amy's creature would not be untapped if she made this play. Amy would need to activate the Arcum Sleigh before she attacked with that creature in order for Vigilance to do anything. And it turns out there actually is a time during combat when she would have priority to activate that ability before she actually declares any attackers. That would be during the aptly named beginning of combat step. If Amy activates the Arcum Sleigh at that specific time, well, that would be before she declares attackers, and that would mean that this play would work the way that she wants it to, where her creature would be untapped after she attacks with it. Okay, so that's the answer to our original question, but I think there's probably one more question a lot of people are probably thinking about, which would be, okay, it's pretty straightforward how this Arcum Sleigh would work in a game where there's only one defending player, but how would it work in a game where there are multiple defending players? And that's actually a really interesting question, so let's take some time to talk about how that would work. Basically, the way it works is, when you're on your turn, as you go to combat, all of your opponents turn into the defending player. That's true at least unless you're playing one of those variants where, for example, you can only attack the player to your left. If there are multiple defending players, then they'll all be treated as the defending player for most game purposes until the end of combat. However, for abilities like Arcum Sleigh, where it specifically singles out one specific defending player, then every combat, Amy would have to choose which player that ability is referring to as the defending player. She can choose from among any of the actual defending players, and there's no stipulations on which one she can choose. In particular, she is not bound to attack that player or even plan to attack them. Remember that she's making this choice in combat, but it's before she's declared any attacking creatures. So, if Amy is playing in a game with Nick and Jenna controlled a snow-covered land and also a blazing archon, it wouldn't even be possible for Amy to attack Jenna. However, Amy could choose Jenna as the defending player when she's activating Arcum Sleigh's ability, and if she does that, then it will be possible for her to activate that ability since the defending player does control a snow-covered land. That would mean that her creature would be able to gain Vigilance. Later on, when she's attacking with that creature, she's in no way bound to attack Jenna, and of course, she couldn't because of the Blazing Archon. However, her creature would still have Vigilance because that ability is already resolved. So Amy would be able to attack Nick with a Vigilance creature, even though Nick doesn't have any snowlands of his own. Pretty cool trick, right? And that's all I have for you today. Happy holidays, everyone, and remember, there's still a couple of days to load up that sleigh of yours with some more presents for the people in your life, but the thought is really what counts. Make sure you're spending at least as much quality time and effort on the people that are close to you as you are money, because that's what people really appreciate. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.